If you've been at any of our services recently, or you've seen the video that I made, you will know that we have set ourselves a challenge, a target this Christmas of seeing 300 new people come across our doors this Christmas. In a recent Sunday evening, I concluded a series that we had been doing called Who's in Your World? The objective of the series was to help people see that there were people in their world who were open to the good news of Jesus, and we tried to help people think differently about the people that they mix with every day. I concluded the series by attempting to give some very, very practical ways in which we could begin to move towards effectively reaching out to those that we work with, those who are in our families, those who we mix with, perhaps on a daily basis. I think there are a number of biblical principles that can help us and can help us particularly in this Christmas season as we try to invite people along and as we talk to them about what's happening and how we'd love them to come along to our carol service or some of the other outreaches that we're doing. I think the first principle is that we need to expect to engage with people. I think sometimes Christians don't really think that people are open to them or to the message of Jesus. In Acts chapter 17, we find the story of Paul in Athens, and he's walking around the city of Athens, and he's getting very distressed because there's so many idols. And then he sees an altar to the unknown God, and he uses that as a kind of a bridge to the people of Athens, and he begins to talk about the unknown God and how he has come to tell them all about this unknown God. And of course, he uses it as an opportunity to present Jesus to them. Sometimes we have to look for ways in which we can build a bridge to the people that are around us. Sometimes it's a good deed. Sometimes it's just talking to them about things that they're interested in. And then out of that, sharing our faith and sharing what's going on in our lives and talking about the sort of things that we do. We need to expect to engage people. Another principle is that we need to see people with sympathy. In Matthew 9:36, it says that Jesus saw the crowds, and when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because he saw them as sheep without a shepherd. Sometimes we can walk through our own little worlds and be in our own little world and really live our lives in a way that doesn't show much awareness of what's going on around us. When Jesus looked at people, he saw them as sheep without a shepherd, and his heart was filled with compassion for them. Sometimes we just need to look again and look at the people around us and allow God to touch our hearts as we think about their needs and about their need of Jesus and about where they're at in life. A third thing that I think is helpful to us is that we can train ourselves to listen to people lovingly. In the Gospels, in Luke's Gospel, in chapter 18, verses 40 and 41, we have the story of a blind beggar who's calling out to Jesus. He says, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." All the people around him try to silence him. I suppose they felt that it was embarrassing for them to have Jesus coming through their town and this man spoiling everything, interrupting everything. But Jesus stops and he asks the question, "What do you want me to do for you?" Perhaps the people that were with Jesus thought that this man simply wanted to get some money for Jesus. After all, he was a beggar. And Jesus could very easily have dismissed the man as just someone else who was looking for something from him. But Jesus sought to find out what was on the man's heart, and he discovered that the man wanted to receive his sight. And of course, Jesus healed him there and then. A fourth thing that we can do is that we can try to answer people in a way that's appropriate to the questions that they're asking. 1 Peter 3:15 says that we should always be ready to give an answer for the reason for the hope that we have within us. It doesn't say that we have to give the answer. It doesn't mean that we have to have a grasp of apologetics and philosophy and theology, helpful and all as that can be. But we need to be able to talk about why the Christian faith and why Jesus means so much to us, how we came to faith and why it's meaningful to us. And it's not the same in every case. For some people, the reason for the hope that they have is that Jesus rescued them from a life of perhaps addiction or a life of meaninglessness. For other people, it's different. In Jesus, they have found someone who has answered their questions and he's given them real direction in life. So we have to think about what Christ means to us and how we find him and why we're following him and in what ways in particular our lives have changed through his presence. Finally, I think it's helpful if we then invite people in a way that's intelligent. In Acts 17, once again, when Paul preaches to the people and begins to share his faith, he gets invited to address the Areopagus, a body of people who were perhaps some of the cleverest people of the day in that particular city. And we find that after Paul has talked about Jesus and the resurrection, that some people just completely reject out of hand what Paul has had to say. There are others, another group of people, and they say that they'd like to find out a little bit more and they'd be ready to hear Paul again. And then there's another group, a third group of people who say that they're ready to follow this Jesus that Paul has declared to them. We find that in the world today there are people who at this point don't want to know. They don't want to know anymore, and we have to honor that and we have to respect their wish not to want to know anymore. There are some other people, and they're ready to make the decision. They're ready to follow Jesus, and thank God for that. That's wonderful. But there's another whole group of people, and they're just ready to know a little bit more. And I think perhaps in our society there might be a lot more people in that category than we think. And sometimes we just have to work out what's the next step for them or the next best step. It might be inviting them to come on Alpha. It might be inviting them to come along to a Christmas carol service or to some of the other outreach events that we do. But we need to think about how best we can help them to move on and to move closer to Jesus. So I hope these principles, these thoughts that I've outlined to you will be helpful to you over this Christmas period. I want to end by saying I believe there are a lot more people out there who are ready for a change in their lives than most of us think. I think there are a lot of people out there who they've grown up with a kind of church experience that has perhaps turned them off. But if they were exposed to a different kind of church, to a different way of doing things, and to a passionate presentation of the gospel, I think that just maybe they might be ready to receive Jesus as their Savior. And if not, they'd certainly be open to hear something more.